I'm 86 years old, and I haven't been at a doctor for anything serious in over 4 decades, and I believe with everything in me that one food is responsible for most of that. Not a supplement, not a pharmaceutical, not some exotic compound they sell in tiny bottles for $40. A food, one that most people walk past in the grocery store without a second thought, or worse, actively avoid because somewhere along the way, someone convinced them it was bad for them. What I'm about to tell you isn't a personal story. It's a deep education in what this food actually does inside your body, at the cellular level, at the inflammatory level, at the level most doctors never discuss with you because they were never trained to discuss it. They were trained to treat disease. I want to talk about why disease struggled to find me. The food is garlic, and I need you to forget everything you think you know about it. Most people think of garlic as a flavor, a seasoning, something you add to pasta sauce or roasted chicken to make it taste good. That framing, garlic as ingredient, is the single biggest reason people underestimate what they're holding in their hands. Because garlic isn't just a flavor compound, it is a biological pharmacy that took millions of years of evolution to assemble. And it has been working with human physiology for so long that our bodies recognize it at a molecular level. Let's start at the surface, because the surface is already remarkable. Garlic belongs to the allium family, alongside onions, leeks, and shallots. But garlic is the most biochemically complex of all of them. Inside a single raw clove, there are over 400 distinct chemical compounds. 400. Scientists have been cataloging them for decades and are still finding interactions they didn't expect. This isn't a simple food. This is a layered, dynamic living system of chemistry. The most famous compound is allicin. You've probably heard the name. But here's what most people miss about allicin. It doesn't exist inside the intact garlic clove. It has to be created. When you crush or chop garlic, you rupture the cell walls, and that action triggers an enzymatic reaction. Alliin, an amino acid stored in the flesh, comes into contact with alliinase, an enzyme stored separately in the cell walls. They collide, and in that collision, allicin is born. This is not an accident of cooking. This is a defense mechanism the plant evolved over millions of years. When a predator bites into garlic, the crushing action creates this chemical reaction, and allicin is mildly toxic to insects and fungi. But here's where it gets profound. What is mildly toxic to a pest is powerfully medicinal to a human being. We have the biological machinery to metabolize allicin in a way that floods our system with sulfur-based compounds that do something extraordinary. They trigger our own internal defense systems to activate. This is the first layer most people don't understand. Garlic doesn't fight disease for you. It trains your body to fight disease for itself. The distinction is everything. When allicin and its metabolites, compounds like diallyl disulfide, diallyl trisulfide, and S-allylcysteine move through your bloodstream, they don't act like drugs that block or suppress a process. They act like signals. They bind to proteins in your cells and change gene expression. They turn on the production of certain enzymes. They upregulate your body's own antioxidant pathways, particularly the glutathione system, which is arguably the most important internal antioxidant your body produces. Glutathione is the compound your liver uses to neutralize toxins, heavy metals, and cellular waste. Most people have chronically low glutathione because modern life, processed food, alcohol, pollution, stress, depletes it constantly. Garlic consumed daily has been shown in multiple studies to measurably increase glutathione levels inside your cells, not by delivering it from outside, by stimulating your own production of it. You're not supplementing your defense. You're rebuilding the factory. And it goes even deeper than that. Chronic inflammation is now understood to be the root mechanism underneath almost every major disease that shortens human life. Heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, arthritis. Not infection, not bad luck. Inflammation that was supposed to be short-term and protective but became long-term and destructive. The question that occupied researchers for decades was, what turns chronic inflammation on and keeps it on? The answer, increasingly, is a protein complex called NFKB, nuclear factor kappa B. It functions like an inflammatory master switch inside your cells. When NFKB is chronically activated, your immune system stays in a constant low-grade state of alarm. It's like living in a house where the smoke detector goes off all day and every day, even when nothing is burning. Eventually, the system exhausts itself. The signaling becomes dysregulated and disease gets a foothold. Here is what the research shows about garlic. Its sulfur compounds directly inhibit NF-κB activation. They suppress the inflammatory master switch, not by eliminating your immune response. You need that response when real threats appear, but by restoring the balance between activation and rest that a healthy immune system is supposed to maintain. Daily garlic consumption over time gradually recalibrates this system. You're not taking an anti-inflammatory pill that wears off in 6 hours. You're retraining the regulatory architecture of your immune signaling. Most people have never heard NF-κB explained to them. Most people have never been told that their chronic inflammation has a molecular address. They've been told to eat less salt, lose weight, take a statin, all of which address downstream symptoms. Garlic works upstream. That's the real power. Now let's talk about the cardiovascular system, because this is where the research is densest and most convincing. Garlic's effect on the heart and blood vessels operates through several mechanisms simultaneously, and that simultaneous action is what makes it so potent. First, garlic produces hydrogen sulfide inside your blood vessels. This sounds alarming. Hydrogen sulfide is a toxic gas at high concentrations, but at the tiny concentrations generated from garlic compounds, it functions as a signaling molecule. It causes the smooth muscle in your arterial walls to relax. When arterial walls relax, blood pressure drops, not because a drug is blocking a receptor, but because the vessels themselves are in a more natural, pliable state. Studies in hypertensive patients have shown garlic supplementation producing reductions in systolic blood pressure comparable to first-line antihypertensive medications without the side effects. Second, garlic affects platelet aggregation. Platelets are the cells responsible for clotting your blood when you're injured, an essential function. But when platelets overaggregate, they cluster together when there's no wound, you get the conditions for dangerous arterial blockage. The allicin metabolites in garlic inhibit a specific enzyme that platelets need to become sticky. Daily garlic essentially keeps your blood slightly more fluid, slightly more reluctant to form the dangerous clots that cause heart attacks and strokes. Third, garlic modestly but consistently reduces LDL oxidation. It's not that garlic dramatically lowers your LDL number. The claim is often overstated. What it does is protect LDL particles from oxidative damage. And here's why that matters. It's not LDL itself that causes atherosclerosis. It's oxidized LDL. When LDL gets damaged by free radicals, it becomes sticky and inflammatory. It lodges in arterial walls. It triggers the immune response that builds plaques. Garlic's antioxidant compounds interrupt that oxidation process at multiple steps. You're not lowering the number. You're changing the nature of the particle. The difference is enormous. Let's go deeper still. The gut. We now understand, and this is relatively new science, less than 20 years old in any serious form, that the microbial community living in your digestive tract is not just a passive digestion aid. It is an organ. It produces neurotransmitters. It regulates immune function. It communicates directly with your brain through the vagus nerve. The composition of your gut microbiome has been linked to everything from depression and anxiety to autoimmune conditions to cancer risk. Garlic functions as a prebiotic. The fructooligosaccharides in garlic, complex carbohydrates that you cannot digest, travel intact into your large intestine, where they serve as fuel for beneficial bacteria. Specifically, they feed lactobacillus and bifidobacterium species, the strains associated with reduced inflammation, stronger gut barrier function, and better immune regulation. At the same time, garlic's antimicrobial compounds selectively suppress pathogenic bacteria, harmful strains that, when they overgrow, produce inflammatory byproducts that leak into your bloodstream. This selective action, feeding beneficial bacteria while suppressing harmful ones, is something no pharmaceutical antibiotic does. Antibiotics are indiscriminate. They destroy the ecosystem. Garlic works with the ecosystem selectively. Daily garlic consumption over years and decades shapes a gut microbiome that is tilted persistently toward health. And a gut tilted toward health is a body tilted toward health. Everything downstream from gut function, immunity, inflammation, mood, metabolism improves. Here's what most people miss about how to actually use garlic to get these effects. The preparation matters enormously. When you crush or chop raw garlic and then immediately cook it at high heat, you destroy the alliinase enzyme before the allicin reaction can complete. You get flavor, you get minimal medicine. The correct method, confirmed by research, is to crush or chop your garlic and then let it sit. 10 minutes at room temperature. During those 10 minutes, the allicin conversion completes, the compound stabilizes. After that 10-minute window, you can cook with it and much of the bioactive material survives, or you can eat it raw, which is the most potent delivery method by far, though not everyone's stomach welcomes it immediately. 1 clove per day. Crushed, rested 10 minutes, then consumed, whether raw or briefly cooked. That is the minimum effective dose that the literature consistently supports. Not 10 cloves, not a daily ritual of swallowing whole bulbs. 1 clove, properly prepared, consistently given to your body every single day, creates cumulative effects that compound across years. The compounding is the point. This isn't an acute intervention. You don't take garlic the way you take aspirin for a headache, hoping for quick relief. You take garlic the way you might exercise, knowing that no single session builds your cardiovascular system, but that 10 years of sessions transforms it completely. Daily garlic consumption over years gradually lowers your baseline inflammatory state, gradually strengthens your antioxidant capacity, gradually improves your vascular pliability, gradually shapes your microbiome. None of these changes announce themselves with dramatic symptoms. They accumulate quietly under the surface, building a biological environment in which disease simply finds less to work with. The science also points to something remarkable about aged garlic extract, garlic that has been stored and fermented over time. The aging process converts allicin into more stable sulfur compounds, particularly S-allylcysteine, which is more bioavailable and more consistently absorbed than fresh allicin. Aged garlic doesn't smell as pungent, and its antioxidant capacity, in some studies, actually exceeds that of fresh garlic. For people who struggle with the intensity of raw garlic, aged preparations are not a compromise. They are an equally valid, well-researched alternative. There's one more layer I want to give you because it connects everything I've said to a principle larger than garlic itself. The body is not a collection of separate systems that break down one at a time. The cardiovascular system, the immune system, the gut, the brain, these are not isolated departments. They are one integrated conversation happening simultaneously at millions of points. When you intervene at the roots, at the level of oxidative stress, inflammatory signaling, microbial balance, vascular tone, you are not treating a disease. You are elevating the entire conversation. You are raising the baseline health of the system as a whole. Garlic works at the roots. That is why its effects appear in so many different systems. That is why the research touches cardiovascular health and immune function, and gut health and neuroprotection and antimicrobial defense all at once. It's not that garlic is magic. It's that garlic addresses the common upstream mechanisms that, when dysregulated, allow disease to take root across all of those systems simultaneously. 1 clove, crushed, rested, every day, for years, for decades, not because an old person told you to, because the biology is undeniable, the mechanisms are documented, and the cost of not doing it, measured in the accumulated inflammation, the oxidized vessels, the depleted microbiome, is higher than most people ever realize until it's too late to go back.